Late 2001 arrived with crushing pressure for the markets. Tenneco, once a sprawling $13 billion conglomerate, had been systematically stripped down to its final remnant, leaving investors wondering if anything of value was actually left. This remnant was a focused auto parts operation, producing essential components. It owned Munger shock absorbers and Walker exhaust systems, two of the most trusted brands in the automotive world, found on virtually every major assembly line. But the corporate breakup had saddled this single business with $1.5 billion of inherited debt. Repayments were coming due, just as a global recession ground car production to a halt. The market saw a melting ice cube, a company that would eventually vanish as interest payments swallowed every dollar of operating profit. Shares crashed toward a single dollar, and its bonds traded for pennies. By the end of 2001, the market stopped analyzing Tenneco as a functioning business. It was being priced like a corpse. While the crowd panicked, Charlie Munger spent 90 minutes reading the core filings. He ignored the headlines and looked at the math. He realized the market had confused a broken balance sheet with a broken business. The debt was a problem, but the underlying franchise was fine. Carmakers still needed his parts, and those brands were designed into vehicles for years at a time. Munger saw that the banks had no incentive to force a fire sale for scraps. Survival was the logical outcome for everyone involved, because the brands were worth more alive than dead. He bought the beaten-down bonds and the dollar stock. Within 3 years, the debt was repaid. The shares climbed into the teens, and he multiplied his capital several times over. This franchise proved its durability under extreme pressure. Today, that same business logic faces a new investigation in a completely different market. This building is the National Stock Exchange in India. It is the new home for the exact franchise Munger identified decades ago. Tenneco Clean Air India now holds the Munger and Walker brands. Tenneco Clean Air India has evolved into the global R&D brain for the entire parent group. Local engineering teams are currently rebuilding global exhaust systems to be 20% lighter for all international markets. Despite this growth and technical leadership, the melting ice cube label has returned to haunt the company. The new fear is the electric car. Because an EV has no exhaust pipe, the market assumes the clean air business will eventually be rendered obsolete by this transition. We have to determine if the move to electric is a temporary market shock like the debt crisis of 2001 or a structural death sentence for the entire franchise. The clean air business depends on combustion, the physical process that occurs whenever an engine burns fuel. It does not strictly require petrol to stay relevant. Combustion is currently splintering into a dozen different paths. CNG, hybrids, and even the new hydrogen-burning piston engines being developed for trucks all rely on this same mechanical process. As long as a fuel is being burned to create power, the resulting exhaust requires complex treatment and cleaning before it leaves the vehicle. These Walker systems are designed to handle that diversity. The technology follows the fuel. As engines pivot to CNG or hydrogen, the hardware adapts to clean those specific emissions. The end of the petrol era isn't a direct proxy for the end of clean air technology. Electric adoption is moving fastest in scooters and small cars, where Tenneco's presence is actually quite limited. The company's true dominance is in heavy commercial trucks and off-highway machines, where they lead the Indian market outright. Heavy trucks like these are the last vehicles on Earth to go electric. The weight of the batteries, the extreme range requirements, and the lack of massive charging infrastructure make them a long-term stronghold for combustion. Tenneco's core revenue is generated in the one corner of the industry that the electric wave cannot reach for years to come. This Munger shock absorber represents the larger half of the company's revenue, and it is completely agnostic to what powers the engine. Every vehicle needs a suspension. In fact, heavier electric cars actually require more advanced shock absorbers to maintain ride quality, turning the EV transition into a technical tailwind. When Mahindra launched India's first electric SUVs, they turned to Tenneco to engineer the electronic suspension, proving the franchise's relevance in an all-electric world. The franchise Munger recognized has evolved to find growth even within the electric transition. It remains intact, compounding through multiple layers of protection. In 2001, an old investor looked past a terrifying headline and found a durable business. That business is still here. To find its value today,
Stop reading the headlines and start to read the business.